The fallout continues from the killing of 5 Amish schoolgirls Monday in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Parents and children across the country particularly reel at such news as school children wonder if the same thing could happen at their school. Parents are left to clutch for the right words, wondering how to be honest, optimistic, and wondering how to make their children feel safe at school. Licensed professional therapist Pam Smith, a counselor at Midland's Centers for Children and Families, says kids react differently based on their age. Elementary children need to be reminded just how much they're loved and how adults in their circle of family, friends, and teachers want to keep them protected.
Yeah, we can't lie to our children, and I think it depends on the age of the child. I think when you're talking about early elementary aged children, their developmental focus is going to be on security and safety, and they may have a difficult time separating from mom and dad if their security and safety feels threatened to them. So obviously the appropriate response for our parents is to present outwardly, even though we may not feel it necessarily inwardly, is to convey a sense of calm and to reassure our children that we love them, that there are law enforcement officials in our community, there are school officials, there are a number of adults who really do care about their safety and who really do everything in their power to make sure that our community remains a safe community.
To such violence at school by youths a half continent away could even turn to retaliation or thoughts of retaliation.
Older elementary and middle school children are going to be focusing in on the fairness, the rightness or the wrongness of action like this. And this is an age group where you're likely to see a real strong response. They may want to retaliate because they think it's so wrong. Talk in strong language because it carries the emotion that they feel in response to what seems so wrong. And I think our job as parents is just to allow them to talk.
Adolescents, children in high school, begin grappling with the ramifications of such horrific incidents. Although it's likely children across the country are talking to their peers about the latest round of school violence, indicating a real concern. Some teenagers keep to themselves, while others will wonder aloud about why such hatred is emerging in places of such innocence and in so-called safe havens.
My 15-year-old daughter went to school after reading about the Amish shootings, and I drove her to school and she talked about it, and clearly it had deeply affected her, because it's kids that could be her age. So she closely identifies with the victims. And after she returned from school, she told me she confided in her teachers and had some interesting discussions. And her concerns were typical of her age. Not only the impact that the shooting had had on the victims' families, but also how it may have impacted on the perpetrators' families.
Now, Smith says trying to find such violence or to make sense of it all may very well prove futile.
And then there's a direct quote from a gentleman. He says, "We appreciate the help and support of the police and firefighters and our neighbors. God's blessing to everyone. God has a reason for this. We don't know yet, and we may not find out in our lives what that reason is." And I think that's so profound, because when we face tragedy that shatters our worldview, and when I say worldview, we expect life to remain orderly. The sun rises predictably every morning. We have our daily routine that we count on to keep ourselves normal feeling. And then when a tragedy like this strikes, it seems as though that world that we think of as so orderly and predictable becomes chaotic and confusing, and it's shattered. And we become very frightened by that.
Should perhaps turning to something or someone bigger than us all for assistance.
We rely upon divine. And divine has a plan that lies far beyond our reach or comprehension. So there is no sense to try to rely on the predictable in the earthly sense, because God has a plan and we remain affixed to that belief.
I'm Jimmy Patterson.